My name is Zach Dressel, and I'm the Assistant Director and Curator at the Earl Scruggs Center located in Shelby, North Carolina. And this is the third part of a series we are doing on historic property research. And if you haven't seen the first two, I encourage you to go back and take a watch. I think that they'll be very helpful if you're specifically looking to do deed research. They aren't necessarily going to connect to what we are talking about today, but you can combine all of the various things I am showing you in these videos together to make a very well-rounded research approach when you are trying to tackle a really big project dealing with a historic property, whether it be for your building, a building that your business is in, or a building that you just have a general interest in, or structure, property, land, however you want to look at that. So today, in this video, we are going to be looking at a really important resource that is available online through the University of North Carolina, Chapel Hill. They have digitized, I believe, their entire map collection from North Carolina, and they have put it in a very nice and neat package. I can go back and we can look at the main page. They have a website called NC Maps. You can see the address up here in the top left corner. I always leave that open, so if you guys want to go to any of these websites I'm using, it's very easy to type in that link up in the top left. For our purposes, we want to talk about mainly Cleveland County maps today, but they have maps that deal with just about every county in North Carolina. So what we're going to want to do is go to the Browse by Location section, scroll down, and we're going to find Cleveland County. And it'll open up every single map that they have that deals with Cleveland County. And we can see they have 29 of them. I want to talk about some of them that are more useful, some of them that are, really cool. And you just never know which ones are going to be the most useful for you until you figure out, what properties you're looking for and that kind of thing. The first thing I want to look at, though, is the oldest map that they have. This is one of the earliest maps of Cleveland County that I have seen. It's from 1868, and it's relatively detailed, you'll see. Let me kind of zoom out a little here, and let's give ourselves some more space maybe to work. But as you can see here, they've got a really nice map that outlines all of the townships of that time, as well as some really interesting landmarks. Let's see. This is one thing about this website that is a little difficult, is when you try to zoom in, the zoom function isn't as user-friendly as you would like it to be, but the images are really nice and crisp, so you can really get in there and zoom in and really get a good look at these. Let's go to Shelby. We can see they have listed the Wilson Springs, which is really interesting. They have listed the Buffalo Paper Mill, which operated on Buffalo Creek for a number of years, a very early paper mill. They've listed Patterson Springs down here, and they've listed your bodies of water. So there's Buffalo, there's Kings Mountain, there's where the battleground is. So it's really interesting. It's a great map. And I think is really helpful when you're trying to get a general sense of what historically people cared about in Cleveland County. They cared about the springs because they took the time to note those on the map. They cared about this random campground up here. It was obviously a big deal. They cared about your mills, your cotton farms. They cared about various things. And obviously your townships, but they've all been listed, your PO boxes, or your post offices. All those things have been accounted for in this map. So it's just a really great map. But I'm going to go back and let's talk about one of the most useful types of maps that are in this database, and that is the Sanborn insurance maps. I've done a coffee with the curator on these before. I don't think I did a digital one. But basically, the Sanborn maps were maps that insurance companies used in order to figure out kind of an inventory of the buildings that were in a given city, what their building materials were, and other various vital information around those things. But what they end up being is some of the most accurate portrayals of different parts in a community's history. So let's just bounce into the oldest one that we have of Shelby. And here we see the 1885 Sanborn map for Shelby. Look how much is on it. Not very much, just because there wasn't much here in 1885. But we have some pretty cool landmarks, and let's just hone in on a specific spot. So as we go through these, I can show you the changes that are happening. One of the things I think is most interesting that we'll look at is the development of this uptown area. So kind of the court square. So for now, we have a hotel here in the kind of the north part. We have just a dry goods store. We have the Methodist Church. A lot of people don't realize that Central United Methodist Church originally was located where the current day Grag building is, and that's that corner. We have the Central Hotel, Bank Building, Post Office. That is where Bank OZK is today in Uptown Shelby. The red portrays a building as brick. The yellow portrays a building as wood. As you can see, the wood buildings still vastly outnumber the brick. We will see a change to that. And we have a different courthouse at this time. This was before the current day, or the 1907 courthouse that the Earl Scruggs Center currently resides in. That was before that time. We had just a smaller brick courthouse, not the limestone one we have now. So let's fast forward to let's bump up to 1900. And what we're going to see is that things don't move very quickly. This is 15 years later. Things are largely the same. Although now we have, I think, a brick structure here that was not originally. You still have your Methodist church here. You still have just some random tenement buildings and such here, wooden buildings. You have these brick buildings. I believe these two are new. Then you have some other wood buildings, but you're starting to see some more brick for sure around this time, and things are starting to fill in a little more too. Courthouse is still the same. Let's bump all the way up to the last one, which is 1921. Okay, not only do we now have 15 pages of map, but we're now having to use this key. So we want to see the court square, which is mostly on pages 2, 3, and 4. So let's go to 3, which will have the courthouse. Now look at that. We've got the Earl Scruggs Center courthouse. Look at this. All brick buildings down Warren Street. All of these brick buildings are still standing today. On Warren Street. You now have a post office, which is the current day Arts Council. You have an empty lot, which is getting ready to house the Central United Methodist Church. And, so things have really moved along. Things have really filled in. And so the reason I'm showing you these maps, these Sanborn maps, is because they can be a really great way, especially if you live in Shelby or you live in Kings Mountain. They have them for Kings Mountain. It's a great way to kind of dig in and see how buildings changed over time. I've helped many people who live in Uptown Shelby trace the history of their homes using those Sanborn maps because they're extremely detailed. So if an addition gets put onto the home, they note it. If the home gets an entire reconstruction at some point, new outbuilding, new barn, new shed, they note it. If all of a sudden there's a road that magically appears through the yard of that home, they note it. So they can be extremely helpful resources for very specific situations. Now, there are other maps in here that can also be helpful, one of which that I've used several times is the Rural Delivery Route map from 1912. And how I have used this one is in the case of, let me see if I can get zoomed in here, the Scruggs home place, one that we have talked about in the last 2 videos. I'm going to bring it up again for this one, because there's some really interesting things that you can find as you dig into these maps. Notably, you can find where certain houses were. They note the individual houses, which is really nice. It is hard to read, and it takes some time to figure out where you are. I'm all the way in Shelby. This is what I'm saying. The zoom function is leaves a little to be desired. So let's get back to here. Okay. A little hard to read, like I said. But we can use various, obviously there's a Scruggs listed there. It could probably be assumed that that is where the home place is because Boiling Springs is just right up here. You follow the road out of Boiling Springs, you're in that vicinity, but it looks like a lot of where the Scruggs home place is kind of taken out. So let's go look for a different map. Let's see. So the road surveys are also good for this, or can be, because it'll show you, when certain roads were put in, what delivery routes they were on, what rural routes they were on, what, different kinds of things, different road types, whether they're hard surface, gravel, whatever. All those things can be really helpful when you're doing historic property research. So I strongly encourage anybody wanting to use different maps to really take a look at this. And I'll show you guys one more map before we go, and that is the Kaiser map from 1886. Now, this is the full county map. This has been reproduced widely. It's the one that I think a lot of local historians use. It's a full county map. Now, I have found out over the years that Kaiser also made individual maps for different townships. I know for a fact that the Lawndale Historical Society has one for Lawndale. I know that we have one, the Cleveland County Historical Collection, I should say, has one for specifically Shelby that are way more detailed than this. And that is why you will see, let's zoom in. Shelby has nothing in it, mostly. And that's why, because they would have been filled in these larger maps. So let's go look at Lawndale. It looks like they filled in a little bit, but not much. This is mainly used to denote property owners. And so basically what Kaiser did is he went around and painstakingly documented every single property owner in the county and exactly where they were. And so let's go back to the Earl Scruggs home place for a moment. Let me find where we are. So essentially, we know Boiling Springs is up here, and we want to look south. Well, wouldn't you know, there's a D. Scruggs, David Scruggs. So that's the David Scruggs property in there. So what this could be helpful to find is who are David's neighbors at the time. We have Pearsons, we have Champions, we have Putnams, Blantons, and there's Flint Hill Baptist Church, which we know the Scruggs family went to. We also know that they went to Boiling Springs Baptist Church, which would have been more up here in this area. So, all that is to say is that these various maps can be very useful in figuring out and setting a place for your historic property. And I hope that this video on maps has been useful and has kind of shown you the various maps and how you can use them. And I encourage you to go in and play around with them, see what information you can find, especially if you're doing a historical project like this. All right, I hope you guys join me for the next video. We're going to kind of wind it down on how you can use different functions of the website Digital NC to do some property research.